Welcome to Autism ADHD TV with Holly. That's me, a neurodivergent therapist, mom, and passionate advocate for affirming approaches. Maybe you're a parent trying to support your neurodivergent child or teen, a therapist or educator wanting to learn more, or you're a neurodivergent person looking for strategies that truly honor who you are. Whatever brought you here, you're in the right place. We talk about the real stuff: emotional regulation, self-awareness, executive functioning, self-advocacy skills that build confidence, social connections that are authentic, and so much more. And hey, if you're looking for deeper learning, check the description notes below for information on my parent workshops and continuing education trainings for therapists. You're going to love it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a so you never miss out. And if you find Autism ADHD TV helpful, please share it with someone, because together we can create more understanding about neurodiversity. Now let's get into it. Welcome, Jan Stewart, to the Autism ADHD podcast.
Great to be here, Holly.
I'm so excited to have you. So I'm going to introduce you real quick.
Okay.
Jan Stewart is a well-known mental health and neurodiversity advocate, author, speaker, and parent whose award-winning book, Hold On Tight, describes her emotional roller coaster story. Jan chairs the board of Carey's Place Autism Services, Canada's largest autism services provider, and was previously vice chair at Canada's leading psychiatric hospital, CAMH, and a member of the Parent Advisory Board of Massachusetts General Hospital's Department of Neurology. She spent the majority of her career as a senior partner with the global executive firm Egan Zender.
You got it.
Jan, you have done so many things. I appreciate that you're going to be sharing your 5 tips for parents of neurodivergent kids. Are you ready for number 1?
Ready for number 1.
Trust your gut.
Right. So as a parent or caregiver, especially if you're a first-time parent like we were when our son Andrew was born, and I have to say, my kids are both grown now. So when I look way back, I didn't know what I was doing. And I had always been raised that our doctor was the medical expert and to trust him. And he kept poo-pooing any concern I would bring up. Andrew's hands and feet would move constantly in circular motion. He never played in his crib. All our friends would have intercoms and monitors, and you'd hear the babies cooing and laughing and talking. When he woke up, boom, he needed to be fed or he would cry. There were lots of other signs that in hindsight we know are neurodevelopmental markers. But again, we didn't know. And the doctor kept turning to me and to my husband, David, and would say, stop being triple type A parents. Andrew's just fine. Stop being overly vigilant. He's going to turn out fine, relax. Now, he was right about one thing. I am fairly triple type A. There's no question about it. But it really perplexed me for quite a while, and I would keep going back. But fortunately, I learned to trust my gut, and I refused to give up. I refused to settle. So yes, you do want to listen to your doctor. You do want to listen to educators at the school. You do want to listen to parenting experts, anyone. But if what they say doesn't resonate with you, please remember that you know your child better than anyone else, and keep looking. You deserve that.
I love that, because it is confusing.
Mm-hmm.
You're hearing different things from different people. And when you're hearing information from someone who is so much, maybe even has a lot of experience, you start to question yourself, right? We have to go with our gut, listen to information, learn from others. Absolutely should do that. But your child is an individual.
Right.
And you're the one who is with them most.
Absolutely. There's
Yes.
no question about it. And again, we'll get into another insight later, but it's the key is finding people who believe in you and partner with you. But you must follow that. And by the way, I still trust my gut today. Both kids have had employers who have been just needlessly discriminated against them or who have treated them like children. But his current employer, and he's been there over 6 years now, has been very inclusive and understanding. And the definition of that is to partner with me and to follow my recommendations and in turn share their thinking. So it's a beautiful thing to see. At school, trust your gut. If you think a teacher doesn't understand, be like a dog with a bone. But of course, you want to do it in an assertive manner, put yourself in the other person's shoes, not an aggressive manner, as you get far more that way than coming up against someone who will naturally get their defenses up.
I learn from people all of the time, right?
Absolutely.
I say our kids are the ultimate teachers. They are the teachers to the parent. They're teachers to the therapist. They're the teachers to the educators. We just need to really pay attention and
That's ex-
take their lead in a lot of ways about the gut. I want to encourage parents, because I wear that hat too,
Mhm.
ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it feels like you can't ask a question. That's telling in itself. You really need to have the type of relationship that you can ask those questions because there can be miscommunications. We don't want to assume if something does come up in your gut and you're thinking, I'm not sure if they meant this or what
Mhm.
exactly was that. It's important to be able to ask for that additional information.
Yeah, and there are no stupid questions. We've all
Nope.
heard that before. But if you're particularly if you're new to this and there's all this terminology and buzzwords and some of it is great, some of it is not. But if you don't have a truly respectful and collaborative relationship with the other party involved in your child's care, walk, no matter how difficult it is. And it's difficult because we know sometimes there's a dearth of qualified therapists, schools, whatever it is, but there are always solutions.
I agree. If you feel like somebody doesn't have your child's best interest in mind, or they're not open to hearing you, there's no reason to be there.
That's correct. Absolutely. It's non-negotiable to me.
It is non-negotiable. I love that. Number two, talk openly with your children.
Yeah, this is a big one. So I think we have to take a step back and realize that all our children are naturally frightened when they don't really understand fully what's going on in their lives. I can guarantee you that our kids know in their hearts they want help, even if they don't ask for it. And this, by the way, includes teenagers. Our job, or an important part of our job, is to listen carefully, which, by the way, is not easy for me, as I often jump ahead. So listen, validate them, make them feel understood and really valued. When I look back, Holly, David and I had to overcome our own hesitations. I think about coming home one afternoon, and my daughter Ainsley was in grade 3. She was being sent to the principal's office every day due to her very disruptive ADHD-like behaviors, jumping on desks, running around. If she felt she wasn't understood, she'd be rude and morose, stole other kids' lunches, did all kinds of things. And yet that phone would ring again from the principal's office. But she also didn't understand social cues and would misconstrue what friends said or meant, and then would blurt out inappropriate comments. And I came home one day from work and found her curled up in a ball crying, saying, "Why don't I have any friends?" And it just absolutely broke my heart. So it's listening to those kind of things that is so critical. So what I recommend, we picked ourselves up very quickly, sat down with the kids. We explained, you're not a bad child. Because Ainsley was beginning to feel that way, particularly from all those admonishments at school, right? This is not your fault. counsel parents all the time about this. Please don't hide or avoid information. This is part of talking openly with your children. I know many parents are scared, and understandably, that their kids may not want to take medication that the doctor has prescribed and might be very helpful. And there might be side effects, and that's a whole different conversation. But if you call them special vitamins, your child doesn't know what's going on. What you want to do is tell them what's going on. And by the way, if you do, they can give you feedback about how they're feeling. But more importantly, as your child grows older, they gradually become empowered to take increasing part in their own therapy and advocacy. Both Andrew and Ainsley do it. It's absolutely wonderful to do. And the final piece, I think, about talking openly is siblings. Don't forget them. I think we all know that intellectually, but it's very hard when you're consumed with a child who's facing severe challenges to pay equal attention to the other kids. But it's critical. One day, Andrew was having a horrific meltdown, and before we found the right medications and therapy, this went on almost every day for up to 2 hours, and they were violent, punching holes in walls, kicking, screaming, swearing. And again, I found Ainsley hiding in her closet, terrified and shaking with fear. And that was a real wake-up call. I should have protected her better. David and I, no matter how little time we had, and as it was precious little, started spending important one-on-one time with her in activities that were enjoyable to her. It must be that something that the child enjoys. So we had, I think, 4 things that we did. There was, at the time in Toronto where I lived, there was an urban farm program for siblings in crisis and distress, and she loved that. And it started her on a lifelong love of animals, and she has her own dog today, and who's the best therapist. So that was one. Number 2, we sent her to sibling support groups. And in our case, it was ADHD, it was autism, it was Tourette. There was no support group for OCD, parents or siblings at the time, so I actually started one. That's again a different time. We spent a lot of fun, special time with her. She was a real tomboy at the time, so it was playing ice hockey, because we're Canadian, remember? It was playing soccer, doing whatever she wanted, cooking and baking together, playing board games like Candyland, which she loved. And most importantly, I think, it was sitting down with her and in age-appropriate language she could understand, explain what was going on with herself, but also with her brother, so that we demystified it and it became less frightening.
If you don't provide them information about their neurology, where their strengths are, or things that may be harder for them, they will think they're bad. These kids are more likely to be victimized. They are more vulnerable. If they don't have someone who's willing to listen and understand and walk next to them through this journey, then they will feel alone. That opens up a whole nother conversation about mental health. I like that you say be open and have them understand their makeup and what's so lovely about them. That helps with self-awareness, perspective taking. It can help in a lot of different ways. They're not wrong. They're not bad.
I know, again, a number of parents who are scared of labels. If I tell my child they have ADHD, they have autism, they have whatever, they're going to be labeled. To me, I'm never afraid of labels, and I'll tell you why. A, we have to shout out to get stigma, fear, and misunderstanding out of the way. Education is the power. Go into the school, and with your child, which I did with both, we talked about what ADHD and autism were. There's going to be stigma, there's going to be discrimination, but you have to fight it, and you fight it through awareness.
I'm going to just piggyback off what you just said because I have to say one more thing about it.
Sure.
If you don't provide information, I mentioned earlier, they will think they're bad. They will think they're broken. Those are labels that they're taking on. Labels are not just what's in the diagnostic manual, right? It is names, what they're being called, what they're being told. You're bad, you're disruptive, you're disrespectful. Those are all labels. I want us to challenge ourselves. I know it is hard. I have that parent hat on. We get scared of labels, but they're already going to be labeled,
Correct.
right?
Great point.
Okay, so number three, insist on an integrated partnership approach with everyone on your child's team.
Right. This is probably the most overarching insight I talk about in my book and that I shout about all the time. And it crosses the entire lifespan of your child. Anyone who touches your child in terms of care, so healthcare providers, educators, later employers, it's so important to have everyone on the same page, sharing information, listening to each other's perspectives. And I'll give you some examples. Both my kids have benefited from this in spades, and they continue to. So to this day, on the healthcare provider side, I make sure that their psychiatrists and their psychologists communicate with one another as well as with me. We're all a team. And so if there's some challenge, we all know what's going on and can work as a team. Again, the sum of the parts coming together. Schools. Andrew's school sent notes home every single afternoon about his day, which we returned the following morning, so that we were in constant communication. And he had a major medication change many times, but at one point, he fell asleep in class for 2 hours. But the school it was fine because I had told them about it, and we had talked about the possible side effects as he was adjusting to this medication. All kinds of examples like that. In Ainsley's case, her school, after we got her out of that environment where she was sent to the principal's office, I found a very small school, 4-to-1 for her ratio of student teacher. And we would hold, the principal, all her teachers, her external psychologist, and David and I would hold monthly group meetings all about her, listen to each other, adjust plans accordingly. Didn't always work, but she was able to stay in school and it worked well. I remember one time the teacher had it and I understood it and sent her into the hall as a quote consequence. It wasn't a consequence for her. She loved it. She wandered the halls, talked to the janitor, whatever.
Mm.
So when we met, I brought this up so we were able to reset. Those are some, and then employers. So I talked about Andrew's earlier employers who either needlessly discriminated against him because he, quote, looked different and they didn't want someone on the front line interacting with customers. This was at a major retailer, which was ludicrous, or they treated him like a child. He had one employer who gave him 1 hour of boring work. They wanted a poster boy and then said, you can go watch TV. That wasn't a reward for him. That was brutal. But his current employer, which is one of Canada's leading telecommunications companies, from the beginning, they held an in-service education session with Andrew and me before his first day. They've listened to our recommendations. The first one, of course, was bring in a job coach for the company and for Andrew. And 6 years later, they still meet every month. They customize accommodations for him, like having someone sit with him during large meetings to make sure he understands. And he loves it there. He never wants to leave. So to me, partnerships and teamwork mean absolutely everything.
Thank you for that insight because you can see the massive difference between a good fit and a not so good fit.
That's
And that can be
exactly
across
right.
team members, businesses, like you said, employment or volunteer opportunities. There is so much to learn there. Treating him so poorly, I'm so sorry that happened. Then seeing that company is meeting his need, how he is supporting that company. That's how it should be.
And of course, as part of this, I remind you all at all points, presume competence. I want to make sure above all, they're happy, safe, and secure. That's the most important thing. But I also will test to see what can they do because I'm not going to be around forever.
All right. Reset your expectations for life. Where do you want to start?
I think accept the reality of your life, that it's not going to be as planned for in some ways, in many ways, in order to move on. David and I started our lives as young parents, as I'm sure you did, and every other young parent, hopes and dreams of happy, successful children. I look back to early discussions David and I had. Here we are in Canada, bilingual country. So should we educate the kids in French or in English? What should we do? Those discussions are totally ludicrous now when you look back on them. What you want, as I said, are happy, safe, secure kids. Now, as part of this, you have to recalibrate the support you can expect to receive from both family members and friends. And there are two different cases. Again, that's that fear, misunderstandings, and stigma that lead to a lot of the issues and conflict. Both our families, David's and mine, were very well-meaning. But even my mom, who was my closest friend in the world, and who I thought understood everything, turned to David and me one afternoon and said, David and Jen, if you were just stricter, a lot of Ainsley's unruly behavior would disappear. I was just floored by that. And of course, it leaves you feeling bereft that your best friend really doesn't understand. Many parents have told me their families don't want to get involved, don't understand, are too busy, have terrible erroneous impressions. They've read that vaccines cause autism or that lax parenting leads to ADHD. You can't get rid of your family members, but what you can do is learn to limit your engagement and navigate around those who are critical, judgmental, or the worse, who think they have all the answers, like my mom's comment there. What I do is when I'm in conversation and this starts to happen, I smile, I try to change the topic because it's a no-win to engage in this topic. And sometimes I just have to excuse myself and go into another room, close the door, and silently scream. And what's really neat is both kids do the same strategy now. I modeled it for them without realizing. So that's family. Friends, a whole different boatload to me. There are friends for the same reasons, lack of understanding, fear, stigma, will distance themselves. I've had it happen, and both kids have had it happen with peers, and their parents have pulled them when they were younger. And it's very upsetting because your support system seems to disappear. But the reality is that many of us need different types of friendships than we had before we had kids. And there's a wonderful silver lining, and that's your audience, support groups, it's other parents and caregivers of children who have neurodevelopmental and mental health challenges. Such warm, welcoming community. And we even joke about situations that other parents might not find so funny. Whether I remember going to dinner with a family that had two kids, Andrew and Ainsley's age, both with ADHD. And as we walked up, Duncan was hanging out his second floor bedroom window, waving happily to us. Now, it caused a momentary eek. And then dinner was all of 7 minutes long. And then the kids would get up and run around. Now, the second part of that is really the fifth insight, which is to be kind to your partner, your life partner, your spouse, whatever you call them. Now, this is marriage 101. It's true for every marriage partnership, but it's magnified for us because it can be so stressful and the strain can be debilitating. Again, please, and we've all heard this, parents blaming each other, accusing, undermining each other. Disagreements are natural, but they're going to divide parents. And I think particularly disagreements about medications are very common, where one parent doesn't believe in them or doesn't believe their child needs them, or is understandably concerned about the side effects. Will my child turn into a zombie? Again, David and I are not immune. We want to throttle each other from time to time. But at our core, we lean on one another. We trust each other, give each other the benefit of the doubt. And I do believe that your partner is really trying their best, even if it's not what you would do. So you want to try to carve out a satisfying life together.
Again, touching on so many things there. We've not really been able to be friends with another family, whereas it looks so easy for other people. They can just do that and get together and have a barbecue or something. There was one family, we were able to do that over a couple of years, and we moved away from each other. I have to reach back out to them. But this is hard. We've had to move.
Mhm.
from a neighborhood where the boys were being excluded. It is really gut wrenching. I want to surround them by people who love them, who believe them, who support them. And if they don't understand, they're open to understanding. That's what I want for them. Then you find out that's what you want for you. Did you find that too?
Oh, without a doubt. And it still surprises me from time to time. The book has been out almost just about 2 years now. And I had a number of friends who read it and said, "Oh, I had no idea. I'm so sorry." And they would apologize. And I said, "No need to apologize. We were so consumed with the children's care. We really had no time to invest in friendships." And I just didn't have the emotional reserves or energy to discuss what was happening most of the time. But
Mhm.
since the book has been out, some of those friends have come back into my life and some haven't. Even though they apologized and said, "I should have been there for you," they're still not there.
And you find your matches. That's modeling for our kids as well. You don't have to have a lot of friends. Quality is actually what matters.
One. Yeah,
Yeah, one,
but
exactly.
even more than that, Holly, many of our kids don't have any friends. However,
Mhm.
they have us. And that's more than many other kids do, whether they're neurodivergent or not.
That is true. Thinking about, again, what works for them, showing them it doesn't have to be one way. Some kids, when it comes to their expectations of friendships, they want to be friends with someone, but they don't want to hang out all the time. And that's okay too, right? Like getting to know what works for them, us getting to know what works for us as a family, and not wasting our time trying to be with people who don't want to be with us.
That's right. But let's also remember sometimes it goes the other way. I just had an example with Andrew last week where he ran into someone at his workplace who he just met, and the person said, "Let's have lunch." Now, that's often just a throw out term. So Andrew started calling him every single day. This had happened about a month ago. We're still calling him. I found out last week. And so I said, "No, Andrew, that's not what that means. It's not a literal," because Andrew is literal, right? Doesn't understand abstract concepts. He doesn't mean let's have lunch. It's just a nice way in this case. Other people might. And so we have to help them both ways.
It can be confusing. It can be. Why wouldn't you believe what someone tells you? That's another thing, too. When people are matches for us, they're going to be people who say things clearly. Our kids can say, "What do you mean by that?"
Absolutely.
Or, "Let me know what day you want to go. Hey, by the way, I just want to let you know I need clarity. So if you ever do want to get together, say, when is it going to work for you? And then I'll see if that works for me too." It's
Exactly.
hard to figure all those things out, but when you can have an open, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
being open and
Mhm.
discussing it and communicating it, those things don't have to happen.
Exactly right.
Thank you so much, Jan. And thank you for your book. For those of you who are watching and those of you who are listening, I'm holding up Jan's book right now, which is Hold On Tight. And you can see that there's all kinds of little space here that I've highlighted. And
And Holly, I'm going to let your listeners know that I had the joy of interviewing Holly for my Today's Parent column on autism. So if you just Google online Today's Parent and my name, Jan Stewart, look for November and you will see my interview with Holly, which we obviously think very closely and we're aligned.
we are aligned.
If I may close, I heard yesterday for the first time a new quote, which I think fits our kids so well, by the author, American author Paul Collins, who has an autistic son. And
Not sure.
the problem with pounding a square peg into a round hole isn't that the hammering is hard work, it's that you're destroying the peg.
Oh, that is so good.
I thought that was a great way to close.
It's true. We need to honor our kids and their differences and try and not make them neurotypical, because I think that's the worst thing that can happen for their mental health. I love that quote and thank you for sharing it.
You can borrow it too. I
I
did.
will borrow it. I will borrow it. And I'll make sure to have information about you and how to get your awesome book too.
That's wonderful. Wonderful. Holly, thank you so much. It was a joy to be here.
It was great speaking with you, and you take care.
You too.
Bye-bye. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you found this helpful, please consider hitting that like button and subscribe so you don't miss anything. And if you're thinking, oh, I know somebody who would really appreciate this episode, please send it on to them. Also, don't forget, go down to that description below because I have loaded it with free resources and information on my parent workshops and continuing education trainings for therapists. Everything you need to keep learning and growing. Thank you for being here, for caring, and for choosing neurodiversity affirming approaches. I look forward to seeing you next time on Autism ADHD TV. Take care.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc Moses Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and/or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.